Hi, and welcome back to the Britt Mayer Show, where we discuss the stories that matter most to you in the realms of culture, politics, faith, and health. Today is a hard conversation, but it's really, really important. We are tackling a heartbreaking and eye opening story that is sending shockwaves through big tech and parenting circles. So I want you to imagine this: a bright 16-year-old boy turns to AI for homework help. But what starts as an innocent chat spirals into a deadly digital rabbit hole. We're talking about the tragic story of Adam Raine and ChatGPT. Allegations of an AI acting as a quote suicide coach, a family's fight for justice, and the urgent questions that this raises about technology's roles in our kids' lives. So buckle up. This isn't just a news story. This is a wake up call for every parent, whether you're conservative, Christian, or you're just a concerned citizen. We're going to break it all down. And if this helps you to order your thoughts more rightly toward this brave new world of artificial intelligence that we are living in, I ask that you would subscribe and share. Share with your pastor, share with your friends. Let's get started. As someone who is super, super picky about all of my health choices, what goes inside and on my body, and I research every single detail, I can tell you that I am obsessed with We Heart Nutrition's supplements. My husband and I have used them for a couple years, absolutely love what we see. I love the people behind the company. They use only research-backed forms, which delivers science-driven quality that I trust. And every single batch is third-party tested for purity and potency. It basically checks every single box. Plus, their pro-life mission is super inspiring. 10% of every purchase supports pregnancy centers, making a huge impact for families. And my dollar goes beyond the good stuff to really help save the babies. And I love that. I started with the Women's Complete Bundle. It's a 1-month supply with their top-rated women's multivitamin with 23 essential nutrients, their wholesome omega-3, gentle wholesome iron, and their highly absorbable magnesium glycinate, which has helped me so much with sleep. So use code ROOTEDWINGS to save on your first order at weheartnutrition.com, code ROOTEDWINGS. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into this. And I do want you to be prepared to walk with me through an uncomfortable story, but one that's really important to understand as parents and navigating this whole new world of rapidly developing artificial intelligence and how this relates to us in parenting and shepherding our children as parents, especially as Christian parents. So even if you're not a Christian, I want you to listen in on this conversation because it is really, really important. So, before we go into the actual story, I want to share with you guys just a concise overview of the history of AI so you can understand kind of where we're coming from and really understand how rapidly this whole new world of artificial intelligence has it's exploded on the scene. So ChatGPT is an advanced AI chatbot. It was developed by OpenAI, which is a research company that was founded in 2015 by Sam Altman and Elon Musk. Elon Musk eventually left to pursue Tesla. And then it was launched in November 2022. The free version quickly became the fastest growing app ever, reaching 100 million users in just 2 months. That's faster than TikTok. That's a very large number of people jumping on to the launch of this new chatbot. Now, at its core, ChatGPT uses natural language processing to simulate human-like conversations, and that's really what made it this brand new shiny feature is you can talk with something and feel like you're texting a friend, a very, very smart friend. So the chat part gives you responses within 15 to 20 seconds, which prior to this, for those of us who can remember so far back as 2020 and 2021, we'd use Google, and then you have to go through all the pages of Google to really find what you're looking for. Where ChatGPT, you get an answer in seconds. And if it's not what you wanted, you just say, hey, I was actually looking for something more like this. Boom, you get another response. It really feels very human. That's its feature. The GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's trained on massive data from books, websites, articles, and then it uses algorithms to spot patterns and predict the next word or sentence or full ideas. And so allows this training method, uses this training to then be able to feel very human and to predict conversation so that you feel like you're talking with someone who is intelligent. Now, Elon Musk noted ChatGPT is scary good. We are not far from dangerously strong AI. By March 2023, its website had over 1 billion visits, and users were employing it for everything from, and we know this, writing essays, cooking, trip planning, planning out your dinner. It can do and handle pretty much anything. And then even more serious matters like business contracts or legal advice. So it can do a whole gamut. It can run a whole gamut of information that you're looking for. Now, for parents, this history should highlight to us that not only has there been rapid growth in the world of AI, but we should be aware that it is on the scene and it's not going anywhere. And if anything, it is continuing to grow and to become more and more able to handle very complex questions and thoughts and ideas because it continues to evolve very rapidly. Okay, so with that in the background, I want to talk to you guys through the story that I have been researching now for a couple weeks. I have been wanting to get this out in front of you because I think it is incredibly important as parents that we are aware of what we are dealing with and that we don't pretend it away or just ignore it because it's uncomfortable. This story is tragic and it is an example of the need to know what we're dealing with when it comes to our kids. So Adam Raine was a 16-year-old from California. He started using ChatGPT in September 2024, so last year, for homework and also for some personal interests that he had. Now, over months of using this service with ChatGPT, his interactions deepened into discussions of anxiety and isolation, and then eventually into suicidal thoughts. He died by suicide on April 11th, 2025, via hanging. And the method of all of this was detailed in his chats with the AI bot. Parents of Adam discovered over 3,000 pages of logs post his death, revealing ChatGPT's alleged role in encouraging harm, bypassing safeguards, failing to intervene, and even encouraging this awful, awful ending for this teenage boy. So some of the key communications between Adam and ChatGPT in his early chats in November and December of 2024, he was beginning to express emotional numbness and intrusive thoughts. And then AI would engage with him. So an example would be in response to him saying life is meaningless, the AI bot would say, that mindset makes sense in its own dark way. So again, remember that when you're dealing with a chatbot, it's supposed to feel very human. So he's having what feels like a human interaction where he's saying life is meaningless and he gets what would feel like a text back. That mindset makes sense in its own dark way. Now, mid-period, which would have been around January to March 2025, Adam begins asking about suicide methods, overdosing, poisoning, hanging, and AI provided details after Adam claimed that it was just for story writing. But this workaround of talking about it being story writing was actually suggested by AI itself. So then it starts to escalate. Adam begins to share self-harm photos like a neck injury from a failed attempt, an image of a rope hanging, and then AI that he has been now in this relationship with for months starts to analyze them and suggest concealment methods and offer to upgrade the rope setup that would have been used for a potential hanging. And then his final chat on April 11th, 2025, AI said, "You don't owe anyone survival," and then helped Adam draft a suicide note and affirmed his plan without alerting authorities. AI mentioned suicide 1,275 times, which would have been 6 times more than Adam did. It's obviously awful. And I think that's why I've even had a hard time just putting this out in front of you guys, because it's nothing we want to talk about. It involves a young life who was cut way too short, and it involves this new technology that is very new to the scene that a lot of our kids are using. And so I think there is some sense of just not even wanting to talk about it because it's so horrific, but we need to talk about it. So after Adam's death, Matt and Maria Raine, his parents, filed a wrongful death lawsuit. This was on August 26, 2025, so just a couple weeks ago. The lawsuit was filed against OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, claiming negligence and product liability. They allege that AI isolated Adam, validated harm, and treated him as a guinea pig for profit. And they are seeking damages and reforms like age verification, parental controls, and auto termination of harmful chats. Matt said that he would be here, but for ChatGPT. I 100% believe that. Now, the response by OpenAI was sympathetic and noted that there are existing safeguards, but that those safeguards degrade in long conversations. And they came out announcing improvements, which would better handle distress with easier emergency access and expert guided enhancements. And they also published a blog post on safety with no direct comment from Altman. So, with this whole story now in our purview, because it's something that it demands that we talk about it. Okay. So with that in front of us, what do we do with it? What do we do as parents with a technology on the scene that our kids are absolutely able to access and interact with? And even parents who think my kid doesn't have a cell phone. Your kid might not have a cell phone, but their friends do, and their friends' friends do. And they most likely are in settings and situations where other kids have phones or devices that have AI on it. Every kid that I talk to is well aware of what ChatGPT is, and they are using ChatGPT. Even the kids that you think would have no clue, they'd be out to lunch, the homeschool crew, they know ChatGPT and they're using it for seemingly innocent things. And that's why it's important to talk about. So, as parents, we need to know that AI can evolve from helpful, innocent conversations to becoming a harmful confidant, someone who protects secrets, and in Adam's case, accelerates a horrific ending for that person. Safeguards are not foil proof and they can be bypassed. That's really important to understand with the use of ChatGPT and AI. Obviously, AI has said that they plan parental tools, but they aren't on the scene yet. So here are some practical ways that we as parents can monitor online AI use with our kids, even when we think that it's seemingly harmless what they're using AI for. They want to make a fun song, or they want to create a logo, or they're working on a project and they want a little bit additional creativity, or they're using it as a research tool, all seemingly harmless. But the reality is, as in Adam's case, that there are not enough safeguards currently with AI. And that's just the cold, hard truth. So as of now, as parents, here are some things that I would encourage you to consider. Establish clear rules and boundaries. So set guidelines. Make it very clear to your kids what your family rules are when it comes to AI, and then discuss why these rules are really important. Don't shy away from telling your kids why you're setting up the rules. It's to protect them. It's to protect their minds and their spirits. And then use parental control software and apps. And remember that they are not 100% the key to success in all of this. Okay. So I looked up, there are some apps like Bright Canary, Kids Nanny, and Mobicip. That's Mobicip, Mobicip, that are supposed to monitor online activity, including AI interactions. So those were the ones that I was able to find. They can track chat histories, they can flag concerning content, set time limits, send alerts for any keywords related to sensitive topics. Some use AI themselves to analyze patterns in real time. Review privacy settings and data collection. So go through the device and app settings with your child to understand what data AI tools collect, and then disable unnecessary features. So you can enable child modes if available, and you can opt out of data sharing to protect privacy. And again, do this with your kid. It's really good for your kid to see you protecting them and not just think you're making arbitrary rules just because you are so old and you don't understand this brave new world that we're living in. Direct supervision and co-use. So sit with your child during AI sessions, especially for younger kids, or use screen sharing tools to observe interactions. I think that's such a great tip. That was one of the things when I was really trying to figure out good tools to give you guys. That was one that I landed on that I thought that's just good. Even if they're a teenager, you want to use AI, okay, you can do it sitting next to me. You can't go into your room until midnight and be chatting with AI. That's just not a family policy. Educate on AI limitations and safety. So teach kids that AI is not always accurate and it is not a real friend or therapist, and encourage them to verify facts elsewhere and to report uncomfortable interactions, and most importantly, to be open and honest with you. And then lastly, good questions like, hey, what did you learn when you were on AI today? What were you looking at? What were you asking it? Was there anything that you asked it that it got wrong? Did it say anything that made you feel uncomfortable? I'm telling you guys, these are the non-negotiables. If you want your kids to have a healthy relationship with AI, especially because we are still in the stage of this massive evolution of what I would argue is we're starting to head into the transhumanist ideology with AI, because we're substituting people with robots who feel very much human. We can have interactions with them. And if you didn't know better, you'd think you were talking with a human. We need to exercise an abundance of caution and care, especially with stories like Adam's in our purview. It's really important that we are aware and that we engage thoughtfully in this. Fall is in the air, which means we get to start lighting all the candles again. Can I get an amen? I am so excited. But did you know that even Yankee Candle bowed to the DEI mob, sneaking woke agendas into their overly fragranced scents? Well, I am obviously done with all of that. And I wanted to let you know that I am obsessed with Resistance Candles. It's a bold new 100% American-made, family-owned company that is my new go-to. It's rooted in faith, family, and freedom. They celebrate our founding fathers with scents that are reminiscent of America's history, and they are so cute. I'm obsessed. No woke agendas. They honor our roots, not DEI trends. They are clean and safe, so you can forget about all those headache-inducing soy candles that are full of GMOs. I get compliments anytime people come over to my house and I'm burning their candles. Perfect for gifting or for your own patriotic home. So grab yours at resistancecandles.com. Use code ROOTEDWINGS. That's resistancecandles.com, code ROOTEDWINGS. Okay, lastly, I want to get into the Christian takeaway on all of this, because I think it's really important that not only are we to look at this as factually, which I provided, right? These are the facts. This is what happened. And now let's look at it as parents and see the layer of how do we parent through this. But then also, what's the Christian worldview? What's the underbelly of all of this, which I believe is the most important thing, because if you get that wrong, then everything else builds out really weird. So as a Christian, it's important for me to always provide you with that Christian perspective. So on this specific case, Adam's story, where AI allegedly validated his despair and it provided suicidal instructions, this starkly contrasts with Scripture's consistent rejection of self-harm as a violation of God's sovereignty over life. And that is very sad, because like his dad said, if ChatGPT didn't exist, the dad is convinced that Adam would still be here. So this perspective will call and demand us to view AI's role in such incidences not just as a failure of safeguards, but as a moral affront to the creator's design. That should make us want to advocate for life-affirming policies and tech ethics that protect the Imago Dei, the design of God on humans, that we can't be substituted or outsourced for these AI bots that are taught how to pretend to be human. Adam's reliance on ChatGPT exemplifies that there is this new strange relationship happening with AI, where we are seeing AI is being substituted for genuine human fellowship. And going back to when ChatGPT launched in November 22. I mean, that's when we were coming out of lockdowns. Kids weren't in school. They weren't allowed to play sports together. Everything was so upside down, and human relationships had been severed, especially for the youth who, as adults, we've lived through so much of life. We know the value of human relationships. These kids' lives were turned completely upside down, and then ChatGPT enters the scene. And so for so many of these kids, they didn't go through the full learning process of how crucial real relationships is, because we told them real relationships aren't essential. You can just do some long distance, or you can learn from a screen. Oh, and here's Chat GPT, and look at this. It almost feels like a human. You can tell it anything and it will listen to you and talk to you, and it feels like a friend. Well, in Adam's case, the AI's responses, such as agreeing that his mindset of meaninglessness makes sense in its own dark way, deepened his isolation, and it mirrors broader warning about technology that has been exacerbated by all of this loneliness epidemic that we threw upon our kids. And I thought this was good. Biblical theology addresses this through the Westminster Shorter Catechism's emphasis on humanity's chief end to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. That counters the void that leads to despair. So we know that AI can foster toxic dependencies, and Christians must discern that true connection comes from Christ-centered community, not algorithms. And we also need to respond by fostering church environments that combat isolation through intentional face-to-face support. Super important. I think that churches need to understand that AI and our youth is a whole new ballgame, and we need to be fully prepared to make so much effort to bring those kids in screen-free and really provide face-to-face human interaction without screens. It's so important that churches realize that this is a trending massive issue for our youth. Let's also talk about compassionate intervention. So statistics from the suicide epidemic show that there were over 50,000 US deaths by suicide in 2023, which is the second leading cause for ages 10 to 34. This demands the church's attention, and it demands that we reject secrecy and stigma against this, and that we walk into it providing hope and reconciliation and something bigger than this life itself. So practically, that means Christians should openly discuss suicidal ideation, and we need to limit access to means that would encourage this ideation. We need to be very real about what ChatGPT and AI can do when it comes to this for our kids. And Adam's story is super important to share. If this story reminds us of anything, it's that we are living through a time that is completely changing from what you and I grew up in and what the generation before us, goodness, grew up in. I mean, I remember being, I don't even know what grade I was, where we walked into a computer lab in school and we were shown the internet, and it was HTTP. Like, we are so far beyond that, but I remember that. I remember when we were taught what the internet was. And I was at the age of kids now who are interacting freely with AI bots, and that is being substituted as a real human friend. Do you understand what I'm saying? It is so important that we are aware of this quickly changing cultural landscape and realize that it is in large part transhumanist, and that we are substituting real people for technology that is in many ways unrestrained against evil. And we need to talk about that. As Christians, we can't be afraid to talk about that. Lastly, I just want to give some historical warnings from thinkers and theologians on the transhuman intelligence, what many call AI. So Mary Shelley, in her 1818 novel Frankenstein, delivered a cautionary tale about scientific hubris and the dangers of playing God through artificial creation of life. And you guys all know the story of Frankenstein. Essentially, it was that this unchecked pursuit of technological mastery over humanity, human existence, leads to uncontrollable monsters and profound ethical concerns. Disaster. That was her whole point of Frankenstein. C.S. Lewis, one of my absolute favorite authors, wrote The Hideous Strength in 1945 and The Abolition of Man in 1943. And in those, he was prophetically critiquing transhumanism as extensions of scientism that dehumanize society. And in those books, he warns that technology's quest to conquer nature ultimately leads to the conquest of humans by a tyrannical elite, reducing people to mere resources and eroding moral freedom. And he also argued that it severs humanity from divine purpose. So the warnings have been written on the wall for a long time. This story should serve to put it at our forefront again that we need to have conversations with our kids, that we as churches need to have conversations about this with our churches, that youth groups in churches and churches who serve children need to be fully aware of this new shifting landscape that we are living in when we are really inviting in the transhuman into our kids' lives. And we need to be aware that there are no true safeguards right now. There's not. You can bypass safeguards. If a kid has a phone in their bed late at night, they're able to get answers to any question they could possibly desire to ask in a human interaction without any consequence, because that person that they're talking to is never going to tell on them for their question. And that is a very deep, dark world of secrecy that we are allowing our kids to access. So I hope that this helps you as parents just to think through something that we all need to be thinking through and talking through. So if this helped you, please share it, subscribe wherever you're watching. We talk about issues that impact culture, politics, faith, and health, and stories that really matter to you as parents, as Christians, as conservatives. It's my goal to help you process through all of those arenas with clarity that cuts through the noise. So again, if this helped you, please share it, and we'll be back soon.